ceasefire 2 months ago, Israel's intensifying the war in the Gaza Strip, where its 10-week blockade on food, medicine and other supplies is worsening a humanitarian crisis. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky challenged Russia's President Vladimir Putin to meet him personally in Turkey on Thursday for peace talks. Ukraine, along with European allies, had demanded Russia accept an unconditional 30-day ceasefire before the talks. Moscow rejected the proposal and called for direct negotiations instead. Polish Foreign Minister Radek Sikorski says he's ordering the closure of Russia's consulate in Krakow. The decision comes after Polish authorities said Russia was responsible for a fire that destroyed a shopping center in Warsaw last year. There's rising concerns in Europe over Russian attempts to destabilize the region through covert operations. This is AP News. The PKK Kurdish militant group has announced it will disband and disarm as part of a new peace initiative with Turkey, ending 4 decades of armed conflict. The decision comes days after the PKK convened a party congress in Iraq. In February, the group's leader, Abdullah Öcalan, who's been imprisoned since 1999, urged his group to convene a congress and formally decide to disband. It's one of the longest insurgencies in the Middle East and has claimed tens of thousands of lives. President Trump's visit to the Middle East this week will not include a visit to Israel to discuss the war in Gaza or talks with Iran about its nuclear program. Instead, he'll travel to Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates, where he aims to leverage American economic interests. The president won't be able to avoid altogether diplomacy on Gaza or Iran. The Gulf countries hosting him are also interested in easing the regional tensions that emanate from these two places. I'm Marcela Sanchez, AP News.
This is 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Partial sunshine develops here for today. We'll see a high around 80 degrees. East winds around 5 to 10 miles per hour, gusting as high as 20. Then for tonight, a slight chance for showers and thunderstorms. Cloudy skies, a low near 62. By Tuesday, a slight chance for rain showers and thunderstorms. Cloudy, high of 77. Wednesday, slight chance for rain and storms, a high of 81. Thursday, chance for storms again, a high around 90. That's your latest Chicago weather update. Currently, it's 54.
DQ presents How to Hit Summer's Sweet Spot. The new DQ Summer Blizzard Treat menu is here. And as the official treat of MLB, we're swinging big with our fan favorite S'mores Blizzard Treat. Plus, new mixing bowl mashup with brownie batter and chocolate chip cookie dough. And even more in our stacked summer lineup. Hurry in today because nothing says summer like baseball and our new Summer Blizzard Treat menu. Right now at DQ. Happy tastes good. Participation may vary. Major League Baseball trademarks used with permission.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my side softer?
Can I make my side firmer?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. Your Sleep Number setting. It's the Sleep Number Everything Smart Bed sale. Every smart bed and base are on sale during our Memorial Day event. Up to 50% off, plus free home delivery. Limited time. Exclusively the Sleep Number store near you. Learn more at sleepnumber.com.
Chicago's progressive talk, WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Welcome to Choose Views with Richard Chew. Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that focuses on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Choose Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chew.
Good Monday morning, progressives, and welcome to the May 12th, 2025 edition of Choose Views, 773-763-9278. Facebook Live, TuneIn Radio, YouTube, and iHeartRadio. Email me at richard@WCPT820.com. Catch me on Substack as well. Catch all of our shows by subscribing to our WCPT podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. There you can get Choose Views, short version and long versions. Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive. Driving It Home with Patty Vasquez. The Big Picture with Edwin Eisendrath. And All Chicago, as well as our other shows and great interviews. You can also do that by checking out our heartlandsignal.com digital platform. Check this out, progressives.
This one, thank you. And thank you. I mean,
don't get it. Come on. Breathe. It's okay. Now go.
We know that you are protecting us, and we are here to protect you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. My name is Niall Sally. From Westchester, from White Plains, work for Westchester County. It just seems that we all here are normal people. And if it was us, we'd be in trouble. But it seems like it constantly seems that we have to go to court. We have to see. And I think many of us know that it's illegal. But I just wonder what the process is to move this forward so that we can survive this.
We're going to be okay because we're all in this together, one community. And each and every time he issues an executive order, we respond. We prepared for this moment prior to the election. We all came together because I was there during Trump 1, Trump 1.0, and so many others. We analyzed Project 2025. We analyzed jurisdiction. We analyzed claims. We analyzed standing. We distributed all of the subject matter to each respective states. We're ready. We're prepared. Do not give in to fear. We are fearless. This is not the time to be afraid. This is a time to stand up and fight back and to resist any temptation for them to divide us. We're in this together. The rule of law is on our side, and the one institution that has stood by our side is the courts. We will not give in, not give up. We will not capitulate. We will not bow. We will not bend. We will survive. I was holding back, trying to be good.
In case you guys don't know who that is New York Attorney General Letitia James. So I thought I'd come out of the gate this morning and let you know that's how I feel too. As crazy of a time that we're in right now, we know it. But there you go. As you guys may have heard and seen, the Attorney General's office, the Department of Justice, I should say, is, trying to go after her. So she's making it clear that we're prepared. Bring it. We have the courts on our side, and we're going to do our best to keep the courts on our side and make sure that the courts are doing their job. So she's speaking a truth that a lot of people, frankly, need to hear. Don't let them divide us. Don't let them come between us. I spoke to some folks about this the other day. I said, listen, the number one tool that they have is the ton of garbage that the administration wants to throw in all different directions. I don't care if it's a local mayor, as we saw with Ras Baraka in Trenton, or as we've seen with the judge here in Wisconsin, and the list goes on. Don't let them divide us by quote unquote taking the bait. Taking the bait, meaning allowing them to say that we are not connected, that we're not strong, that we're in disarray, and all these other words. They don't get to land on us. We're in a fight, guys. Let's just be honest about it. I think that's one of the things that a lot of people who are becoming woke, that may have voted for Trump, have realized is that this isn't. They know that's not what they've. They know what they voted for is not what they're getting, but what they voted for is what they're getting, and they were told. That being said, what AG James just said should be part of your rallying cry. And if you want, bless you, Devin, and if you want that clip, So you can have that as one of your morning reminders. I will be glad to send it to you. Just email me, of course, at richard@wcpt820.com, and I will get it to you. If you need that to hit, if you need to hit the button, if that needs to be your wake up music in the morning or your alarm, we'll get it to you. But that's, I just felt that it's important that you guys understand that those who do hold a certain amount of power and sway are using it, or they're prepared to use it in the best way possible. So there you go. Letitia James, AG in New York. Our guest today on the show, Sarah Jones, co-founder of Politicus USA. She'll be with us in the 7 o'clock hour. Rich Logis and Steve Vilches from Leaving MAGA. As you guys know, every couple of weeks we talk with Rich, and he has a guest on to talk about his organization, Leaving MAGA, why he created it, what was his moment of clarity, and how he's creating a pathway, or as I said before, a bridge to help people who have left or are trying to leave MAGA. And I think it's important to have that conversation. So we'll have Rich on in the 7:30 hour. I'll be taking your calls starting now. So give me a shout and let me know what you're thinking today. And this week, we're going to be talking a little bit more about governors' roles and how our governors, our lieutenant governors, our AGs, and are going to be a big part of this ongoing defense that we have to have. So we'll be getting into that throughout the course of the week. And helping Devin get some. My man is he like myself. We have terrible allergies, and they just sneak up on us every now and again. So send some allergy prayers to Devin this morning. But we still are going to be having our what am I trying to say? The question about what you want to see Dems focusing on a national level. And what are you doing to make your life count? When the mood strikes you during the course of this week, just send me an email or a text or call in so we can talk about that, because I want to know, I want you guys to say those words out loud, and that puts us in a better position of power to do what Attorney General James has said. And I'm right there with her and her belief on that. We have some really great other clips that Devin and I put together that I think you guys will help to add to our conversation, but it'll also help to give you some added inspiration to see that we can fight. And one of the things that I work hard at doing is finding those tools to make sure that when we talk about fighting, that we have the tools to fight. And part of that is focus right now. There's so much going on. As I said a moment ago, there's so many distractions, so many things. And Sarah and I are going to talk about a handful of those items this morning. But there's so many things that are distractions. I believe the primary focus for Democrats right now should be coming together. And I know that may seem like what, how tangible is that? How do you put any meat on that bone? Excuse me. Every person that I've talked to that's an elected official or working in an organization that's about helping any of our communities will say this in one way or another. It's about working together. It's about not being in your silo. It's about getting connected to a community. And what's powerful about that is many times a person is searching for something to do. And this is why I do my best to focus on a lot of the local groups that have a national voice, because we know that those connected dots are really important. So the reason that focus is so critically important right now, and why I think a big part of what Democrats nationally should be focused on, is making sure that we're pulling together the voices so that we're not in 17 different directions. Historically, that's been one of the downfalls, if you will, or one of the open parachutes. Let me put it that way. Try not to use negative language. But one of the open parachutes on the Democratic Party is the fact that there's 17 different directions. Now, some of that's because of there's 17 different things that we got to be talking about, and we want to be talking about them, and we want to bring in people into the tent, et cetera. We understand that conversation. I think that now, though, that the party, meaning the everyday voting parts of the party, are looking for a connection. They're looking for, a reason to be part of something. This is my observation. I don't need to be right. I'm just looking at it and saying, I want to see us continue to galvanize, because every person, as I said, that I've talked to that's an elected official and or the head of a group, an organization, has said that when people come out and people are involved, that it strengthens the message. So we may have multiple messages, which are necessary to reach multiple different groups of people in our party, and bring some people off that sideline, that 69 million, whatever the number is, that didn't actually vote. Some say it's higher. We still have to, we want to make it a common message. And what that message is, I'm not going to sit here and say what that singular message is, but maybe it needs to be that we are, if nothing else, I know it sounds corny, that we're coming together, that we are the place to be, that we've got the better ideas. David Jolly, I've referenced him so many times. So that's how I'm seeing it this morning. That's going to evolve, and that's part of what we're trying to do here. So let's take a quick break. The number is 773-763-9278. The lines are open. Give us a call. We're going to hit a few Choose Views news items and some other updates that are taking place. We'll be right back.
WCPT replay.
Mayor Brandon Johnson, y'all.
The working people of this city voted for me because they know I'm going to do right by retirees, the most pro-worker city in America. And, of course, we continue to grow our economy by investing in our infrastructure. That's actually how you build safe communities. There's no coincidence that violent crime is down in Chicago as our investments in our infrastructure, our investment in mental health, our investments in education, our investments in youth and workforce development, our investment in our community colleges, all those investments are going up. Violent crime is going down. I'm responding to the structural damage that I inherited. Now all of a sudden people have questions. And now that we're in charge and setting this city on the right trajectory, work with us to actually build the type of economy that's inclusive versus trying to come up with these false narratives that, quite frankly, the people of Chicago, they're seeing right through it.
Keep listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Good morning. You're waking up with Richard Chu.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
We're live and ready to hear from you. Text or call us now at 773-763-9278. Same number. Simple as that. Let's get the conversation going on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Welcome back, progressives, to Choose Views, 773-763-9278. Good morning to everybody, anywhere you are checking out our show this morning. We appreciate you. The Mother's Day spending hit a $34.1 billion number this year, according to the National Retail Federation. More than 80% of U.S. adults to celebrate the holiday, and that celebrate the holiday spent on average roughly $259, up from $254 last year, despite cost of living pressures and tariff-related price hikes. Flowers remain the most popular Mother's Day purchase, 74%. Followed by greeting cards at 73% and special outings such as brunch or dinner at 61%. I hope everyone was able to enjoy a good Mother's Day weekend. Some of us are no longer, our mothers are no longer with us, but they're with us in spirit. And so hopefully you were able to celebrate Mother's Day by sharing some good love and good vibe with other mothers that are still in your lives. That might be your sisters. It might be your nieces. It might be a colleague and their spouse, and the list goes on. So hopefully you guys were able to have a safe and enjoyable Mother's Day weekend. All right. Southwest, not so secret seats. What does that mean? Southwest passengers need not wait to enjoy the airliner's roomier seats. Before they can be bought later this year, some cabins already offer the upgrade for free as the airline begins to retrofit planes. It's all part of a plan to boost revenue and draw new customers. Flyers just need to look in the first 5 rows, plus exit rows, seats for more pitch. Now it's the time, the Wall Street Journal reports, that Southwest uses dynamic pricing to test seat prices of different sorts. Is self-checkout here to stay? Retailers that once went all in on self-checkout are starting to scale back, but it doesn't necessarily signal the end of an era. USA Today reports. One professor at the University of Penn's Wharton School said the role of self-checkout is evolving. Part of it is shopper frustration, and part of it's simply business, as retailers blame higher theft rates on unattended transactions. Several stores have adjusted their self-checkout strategies in the past 18 months, with Sam's Club introducing AI technology and Target limiting the number of items. That's kind of silly. You can't buy that many things in the self-checkout. You know, have people do the checkout. Just keep paying folks. So anyhow, remote workers engaged but unhappy. A new Gallup poll on workforce trends shows that fully remote employees are more engaged at work than their hybrid and on-site partners, but less likely to be thriving in their overall lives. The report found that 31% of remote workers feel enthusiastic towards their work compared to 23% of their hybrid and on-site colleagues. However, they also report higher levels of negative emotions, and only 36% feel they are doing well overall. And we all heard about this. Newark Airport is facing some other issues with outages, as we saw over the week. This past week, the FAA and the U.S. airline did decide to meet and discuss flight capacity at Newark Liberty International Airport following a third equipment shortage and outage Sunday morning. Communications issues stemming from the FAA's Philadelphia facility led to a number of flight delays and cancellations. This is the third breakdown to occur in recent weeks due to equipment failures and severe air traffic controller shortages. There you go. U.S. and China trade talks do continue. Tariff negotiations between China and the U.S. concluded over the weekend, according to the Associated Press, saying that there was no, quote, immediate indication whether progress was made. Talks between Treasury Secretary Scott, I don't know what I'm doing, Bassett, and Chinese Prime Minister He Fenghui are set to continue. Now we're at the beginning of this week. The levy on many Chinese imports currently sits at 145%. All right, guys, a couple of updates, a couple of items. Global issues. You guys probably saw that the European leaders have issued a ceasefire ultimatum to Vlad, the Pootster. Either he negotiates an end to this war that he started, or Europe plans on unleashing a large amount of sanctions against Russia, and also plans on providing an extraordinarily large amount of support to Ukraine with some pretty intense and devastating weapons, as the report's been put out there. So this surge could really provide the Ukrainian military and President Zelensky with what they need to sustain themselves and to push back. So we'll see. Putin tends to not listen to others and rationale, but we'll see where that goes. And speaking of not listening to others, whoa. Now, this is not about the need to be right as much as it is wow that we had this conversation. And I wrote an article in Substack. Hal Sparks did an entire segment on it. And unfortunately, the conversation keeps going. And maybe we're part of that process of keeping it going. But it speaks to a bigger conversation. What am I talking about? David Hogg was on Bill Maher. Bill Maher, gives him, once again, consider the source. He's on Bill Maher. And Bill Maher is in need of his own, the filling of his own deficiencies, as we all are. But Bill Maher was essentially congratulatory to David Hogg, in case you guys didn't catch the clip. Irrespective of that, all that, the point I want to make about this is, I said in my Substack article, and Hal Sparks said his version of kind of the same thing, similar take, is it's not that the Democratic Party doesn't want and doesn't need younger voices, younger energy in the party. No one has said that. Well, let me back up. No one in their right mind has said that. I certainly haven't said it. Hal hadn't said it. Others haven't said it. What we've said clearly and unapologetically and unfiltered is learn from those who are doing the work now, rather than pushing them and kicking them out the door, or having them giving the impression that that's all you're concerned with. And I'm not going to repeat much of what was said on the segment on Bill Maher and whatnot, because you can check it out yourself. Because I'm more concerned on the bigger point. We, as a party, want to have every voice in the party that's going to have impact, whether that person's 75 or 25 and everything in between. You aren't going to convince me that a 75-year-old that's energized and powerful is not going to have a voice that's important to this fight. And you're not going to tell me that a 25-year-old doesn't know what the heck they're talking about and doesn't have experience in a space that's needed right now, and everybody in between. What's important is how what you say is said, and to take the position that you're just going to bad talk anybody, but someone that's certainly an elder in the party and part of the party's base, particular base being African Americans, men and women, that you're going to trash talk that person. There's a way to do that. There's a way to have that conversation. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that we don't have the conversations with folks that may not be doing certain things the way you want them to be done. But that goes both ways, David Hogg. And here's the point that he doesn't seem to want to get, because the point's been made. It's not that it's not been made. It has been made. It doesn't seem like he wants to get it, because he's failing in an area right now, and that's the skill set of listening, and not to his own brain, but listening to the folks around this conversation that are saying there's a different way to approach this. And there's a reason that Ken Martin had to make the decision to say, look, dude, you need to shapeshift a little bit here and play this game a little bit differently. You're going to cause us some losses. We're going to get some technicals. If we get too many technicals, we're going to suffer a penalty. And that's what's happening. And he doesn't hear that. And I don't care why he doesn't hear it. He needs to hear it, or he needs to shut up. And I'm saying that not because of his age, but I'm saying because of the way in which he's approaching this. And I know there's some people that say, yeah, get rid of all those old dogs. They need to go. They need to go gracefully, and they in part should be doing a better job, granted, of transitioning. You'll never hear me say that they're doing a perfect job. But at the same time, the approach that David Hogg is taking right now is going to be detrimental. And I kind of fault Ken Martin. When he first made this selection, I said that's a bad idea. And it was a bad idea not because of David Hogg's age, but his lack of maturity. And those are different. And it's showing itself every time he opens his mouth right now. And he's doing this. Listen, dude, if you're gonna go after somebody, stop going after your own players. Go after the other team. I mean, how that just goes to show his lack of experience or willingness to understand that concept. Right now, we're in a fight. You got a fighter plane, and you're pointing it at your own people. That's insane. You pointed at the enemy. In this case, the enemy is what AG James said, respectfully. It's those who are trying to tear us down. So stop being one of them. Listen, Democrats, let me at him. I'll set him straight. Doesn't mean he doesn't have a seat at the table, but he's got to understand that like all of us, we have to modulate how we sit at that table so that we are effective. And I know there's people are going, "Oh, Chew, you just don't want to see the young folks get involved." That's a damn lie. I do, because there's young people that don't like this. This is the litmus test. There are young folks that are speaking up and saying we're not down with that. So it's not about young folks not having a seat at the table. We want them to have, because we're getting tired of sitting at the table. We need the replacements. But the way in which that happens has got to change. And David Hogg, you need to reset. Let's put it that way. All right, let's take a quick break, guys. The number is 773-763-9278. This is Choose Views, and we'll be right back.
If you turned 65 recently like me, it's important you find a Medicare Advantage plan that gives you the coverage you're looking for. But finding one can be difficult. The best thing I did, and I suggest you do the same, is call a licensed insurance agent. and let them walk you through your Medicare Advantage plan options. There are so many benefits you have access to, so make the call now and let the representatives explain everything to you. Our licensed insurance agents can offer you a variety of Medicare Advantage plans. Plus, the call is free, the information is free, and there's no obligation to enroll. We're here to make it easy for you to select a Medicare Advantage plan that may work for your needs. Finding a Medicare Advantage plan can be easy if you do what I did. Make a quick call right now to learn more. Thank you.
800-365-6303. 800-365-6303. 800-365-6303. That's 800-365-6303.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Partial sunshine develops here for today. We'll see a high around 80 degrees. East winds around 5 to 10 miles per hour, gusting as high as 20. Then for tonight, a slight chance for showers and thunderstorms. Cloudy skies, a low near 62. By Tuesday, a slight chance for rain showers and thunderstorms. Cloudy, high of 77. Wednesday, a slight chance for rain and storms, a high of 81. Thursday, a chance for storms again, a high around 90. That's your latest Chicago weather update. Currently, it's 55.
Because facts matter. You're listening to WCPT 820.
It's Choose View with Richard Chew on WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Hey, Progressive, welcome back to Choose View, 773-763-9278. All right, I'm going to leave this David Hogg thing alone for a while. Folks are going to agree and disagree on that. And let me say this as I let this go. I am not saying one thing about Young Voices not being in the mix. I'm saying we all should be in the mix. I'm saying that we have to be respectful of those who've been in the mix and that are in the mix so that you don't turn people off. And there's a lot of different takes that can be made on that. But being disrespectful is not one of the things that doesn't play well with me. So maybe it's my personal assessment of it. But the disrespect that's seemingly there is something that I don't tolerate particularly well. So it can go both ways, but that's kind of how I sit. And stop pointing your energy and anger at the Democratic Party without having a solution that's palatable. Put that energy toward. There's more destructive Republicans right now elected on all levels than there are Democrats. So David Hogg, put that energy toward taking them out rather than taking out our own people. That's a simple message. It's an easy one. Let's see if he's got the capacity to pivot to that and do it quickly. All right. I've got a couple clips I want you guys to hear, and I think that when we asked the question about fighting, what does that mean? What does that look like? We've got one that I think from an old scholar. Speaking of age, from an old scholar that's been around this fight for a while, that I think you guys can appreciate from the, I guess you can just call him great historian and great storyteller, David Attenborough.
If you were to pick up the phone and speak with President Trump or President Xi of China or Prime Minister Modi in India, what would you say?
I would say that the time has come to put aside national ambitions and look for an international ambition of survival.
It seems politically the tide is moving in the opposite direction from that of nations more looking inward and not as being part of a larger international community.
That's what's going to sink us in the end. That's what's going to sink us.
Can you be optimistic at all?
We don't have an alternative. What good it is to do is say, oh, to hell with it, I don't care. You can't say that. Not if you love your children, not if you love the rest of humanity. How can you say that?
Exactly. We have to stay. The fight is on. It's not coming. The fight is, autocracy is not coming. It's here. So for us to, and unfortunately, we had the wrong person in office to reach out to do what David Attenborough says, which is to build international coalitions. Trump wants to lead us down a path of isolationism, which is not going to work. And listen, if it didn't work 50, 75 years ago, if we go back to World War II, 80 years ago, it's not. And when we had less global connection and less global conversation, it sure as hell isn't going to work now because we're so interdependent, or at least we should be. This look, what have I said so many times? Racism, sexism, Christian nationalism, and privilege are my 4 legs to the stool that I believe are some of our biggest problems in this country, if not the biggest. They're the way in which I build that organizational chart. And Christian nationalism, or nationalism that happens to be sort of energized by Christian faith, Christianism, is creating a form of isolating ourselves from the rest of the world. And I don't like that at all, because we are a global world. We are a global community. We have to be. Technology, if anything, has put us in the position to take advantage of that for so many people, if we have the right people and right voices in place. So I like what David Attenborough had to say there, and I like the way in which he positions it, that we have no choice. And going back to A.G. James, we have no choice but to fight. The fight is here. Autocracy is here. Technocracy is here. We have to fight to put this train back on the tracks. And like you said, we have no choice. One of the things that is happening in terms of fighting that I'm really happy to see and hear, and there needs to be more of it, is Democratic leaders working their ways into red districts and finding ways to get into red districts and have town halls and have other meetings. I've been saying that. Many others have been saying it for a while. We have to do that. If they're not going to show up at their own town halls in their own districts, then we should be there taking their candy every time, every chance that they get. If I were an elected official and during the breaks from sessions, particularly at a federal level, I'd be what are the neighboring districts to the district that I serve, and let's find a way to have a town hall in those districts, because the voting records of the Republicans are right there in front of us. Let's go into that district and let's talk to the people there and find out what their disappointments are and what do they want to see us do to try to push for change. It's not a complicated strategy, Dems. It's not, and it can be very, very effective, as we've seen by the numbers of people who've shown up in a Republican district, federal district, or congressional district, I should say, that voted for their congressional leader and their leader hasn't shown up. So take advantage of that. I'm seeing some of it happening. The numbers are out there. And I feel that the more that we can encourage, and listen, I made this note over the weekend. This is another opportunity for us as voters, regular folks, to reach out to our congressional leaders in their districts and say, listen, we're good here. We know what you got to do. We voted for you. And what we'd like to see is for you to go out and go to these other districts. You're fine here. Almost give them not a pass, but kind of a pass. We don't need to see you here. We need to see you in another district to get those people to understand the importance of changing that district. I don't know. Call it crazy. But I think that that's where we have the opportunity is to continue to identify and remind our congressional leaders that this is an opportunity to go steal some candy and go grab their candy from another district. There you go. I think that that's a fair way of putting it. And to David Attenborough's point, we have no choice but to fight and fight differently, fight a more, rather than just a head-on or only a head-on fight, but an angular fight. Angular meaning coming from different directions. Those are opportunities right now that we should take advantage of, I believe. So another clip that that we put together that I thought these two that we're going to play back to back, or certainly right before we go to this break, were really kind of spot on about the perceptions or the people that see things, but maybe they're not really paying attention to what they actually are seeing, or what they believe in versus what they end up doing in terms of voting. And we've got this one clip that Devin and I put together. It's called "You Are Woke, Dude."
White South Africans are expected to arrive in the country out of 8,000 or so applications. How is this being received in the U.S.? Are there concerns, particularly by refugee advocacy groups, for example?
Well, refugee advocacy groups, of course, find it utterly astonishing that a Trump administration that would close America's doors almost wholesale to refugees from all over the world, because that is, in essence, what President Trump has done in the weeks since he returned to the White House on January the 20th, would throw America's doors open for one group of people, Afrikaner farmers, based on a false statement that the president has made about the Expropriation Act. He argued...
Let's get physical. I'm so sick of people calling me a racist. How'd you get in here? Door was open. All you liberals think you can assume that I'm racist just because I voted for Trump. I believe in conservative values, stronger borders, protecting jobs, less government. Does that make me a bigot? Okay, let's just stick with the racist part. Why don't you want to be called racist? Because I'm not a racist. Okay, so you agree that racism is bad? Duh. Okay, so here's the problem. When candidates draw in people like white supremacists and literal Nazis, that's not just a coincidence. It means those people feel safe under the same banner. And I don't think that's something you can just ignore. Okay, but I have no control over who somebody else votes for. I just vote based on policy. Sure, but politics has never been just about policies. It's about values and policies that uphold those values. So when a political party openly invites hate and you don't speak up to say, hey, this is wrong, then you're actually helping to normalize it. Yeah, so you want me to abandon my beliefs because some awful people vote for the same candidate? Listen, I'm not going to tell you what to do. But I can tell you that voting is always about prioritizing your beliefs. I don't think you're ever going to find a candidate that you 100% agree with on absolutely everything. But we all choose what we're willing to overlook. By voting for him, you've made it clear to all of us that you are willing to overlook overt racism in favor of what you see as economic advantages for yourself. Shoot. Was the door just unlocked, or did you do kind of like a Kramer thing? No, it was kind of a Kramer thing.
So, what are you willing to overlook? That is what that's a big part right now. What are the folks who are on the right, and this is a good sort of back and forth conversation that they had, a little skit that they did. What are you willing to overlook? And a lot of people, I'm certain of this based on the results, and certainly the numbers that are underneath the results, made it clear that there were some things they were willing to overlook. And that includes things like Trump's convictions, Trump's fines, Trump's failed businesses, his denigration of people with that may have a mental or physical challenge. And the list goes on. People were willing to overlook that and vote for someone who would take us down this path and head fake on the reality that they were okay with racism, they were okay with sexism, they were okay with an overtly just critically problematic Christian faith, and also that the overlooking, I think, in some ways was supported by their privilege. I could be wrong, but it doesn't seem to be that way because the numbers are bearing it out. So the question to be asked is, what are you willing to overlook for fascism? What are you willing to overlook? And what is fascism going to actually get you? What direction is it going to actually take you? Is it going to provide you with these improvements in prices of groceries that you thought you wanted or you said you wanted? Is it going to reduce your cost of living and increase your income? How is fascism going to do that? And one of the things that Sarah and I are going to talk about when she's on in the 7 o'clock hour is a big deal thing that took place this weekend. And we could call it a distraction, but it's a thing that, it really has to be reflected up against how many people said they wanted to see lower this, lower that, safer this, safer that. And I won't spill the candy in in the yard. But Sarah and I will talk about this in a few minutes. Let's take a quick break. The number is 773-763-9278. This is Choose Views, and we'll be right back.
This is your WCPT Progressive Calendar. Wednesday, May 14th at 11:30 a.m., the Lincoln Forum and the Union League Club of Chicago present a candid discussion with former and current Chicago alderpersons on how Chicago's government really works, inside City Hall, understanding Chicago's aldermanic system. Retired alders Michelle Smith and Leslie Hairston and current alderman Raymond Lopez are among the panelists. Mike Flannery moderates. The event takes place at the Union League Club of Chicago, 65 West Jackson Boulevard in Chicago. Get your tickets on Eventbrite. Thursday, May 22nd at 12:30 p.m., the Buffett Institute and the Center for Communication and Public Policy at Northwestern University's School of Communication present America's Soft Power and Reputational Security in Crisis, a lunchtime conversation with USC Professor Nicholas J. Cull. The event is free and takes place at 720 University Place in Evanston.
Hey Google, play WCPT.
Streaming Chicago's progressive talk from TuneIn.
It's Choose Views with Richard Chew on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Hey, Progressives, welcome back to Choose Views, 773-763-9278. So I had this really interesting sort of moment where I went, wow, there are some folks who are might be viewed as a stereotypical Trump supporter. Not necessarily, but you might look at them and go, that's a stereotypical Trump supporter. And one that's, believers of fascism and all this other craziness. That have posted some really amazing stuff that I just follow it and I kind of see if it makes sense and it's relevant, and it is, because a lot of times, as much as we are all prone to assumptions, people will surprise you. And so there's a clip that I think is really appropriate right now in terms of this conversation around who the real bad guys are. And let's go to the white dude on immigrants.
Have you ever heard of thousands and thousands of immigrants killing people? Oh, yeah, I have. Big time. Surely you mean immigrants like this Italian guy right here, right? I think he actually killed millions of people. What about these immigrants? You're talking about those type, right? Surely you mean them. Or do you mean the immigrants who did this sort of stuff to women who were smarter than them? Or that they just could not get to pay attention to them, the incels of their day. You mean those immigrants, right? Because those were really the worst immigrants we've ever had in this country. Look, if the standard is immigrants committing violence, then America was founded on it. The difference is, back then, it wasn't called illegal immigration. It was called Manifest Destiny, and you got a commemorative plaque and remembered throughout history for it. But if you're talking about today, then you are way less likely to be killed by an immigrant than you are somebody who was born here. You are far more likely to suffer violence from somebody who has a flag on their clothing or their truck. And I know how the right loves to bring up Laken Riley, and that was a terrible, terrible situation. But you know what? If the guy who killed her's name was Mark Smith, we would have never heard about her. It was only made into a huge deal because it was one of the small examples they could find to pinpoint and say, see, this is what they do. Totally ignoring the fact that there have been way more brutal murders by people who have complexions like this. But y'all don't want to talk about that. In a situation like that, it must have been a lone wolf or just somebody who had a mental problem or something. But if it's an immigrant, then it must be somebody who's evil to the core. If it was an immigrant, they must have broken into the country just because they had a bloodlust. Do you see the hypocrisy that is always slung on us from the right wing? For the sake of giggle shits, let's say that there was a immigrant in this country who had something like 91 indictments and 34 felony convictions. Would you want them in the country? I know I wouldn't. What if you also found out that that same immigrant was found liable for rape? And what if there were hundreds of testimonies from hundreds of different people talking about how they were scammed by that same immigrant? Oh, what if you also found out that immigrant was best friends with a child sex trafficker for like 15 years? Also, what if that same immigrant said that if he wasn't related to his own daughter, he would be hitting that? Now, you may have guessed by now, but this person actually exists. But he's not an immigrant, although his mother was, and the mother to his children was, and his current wife is. But somehow I just get the feeling that you don't have a problem with those immigrants. I wonder what could be different about them versus the ones that you're referencing. I guess it's just going to remain a mystery.
So you get the point. You know who this gentleman's talking about and who he's referencing, but also what he's referencing. And that goes back to what I was saying before about this whole conversation around the four legs of the stool: racism, sexism, Christian nationalism, and privilege. And it's allowed people to kind of overlook a lot of things. Not allowed. People have chosen to overlook. Let me back up and clean that up. People have chosen to overlook, in the face of all of these items, what ultimately is a direction towards fascism, and not calling out the actual perpetrators of the things that they say are happening by other people. And bless you, Devin, to the gentleman who posted this, I think. Kudos to you, because that's exactly what so many people need to hear as it relates to why you can't, listen, those of us that are, progressive liberal Democrats, I think we understand where we stand for the most part. And that there's going to be some modulation with that, without a doubt. It's those and this is, again, I said I was going to leave this alone, but it ties into something that we have to do and make sure that we're calling out, and that is, let's not fight against each other. Okay? Let's push ourselves to do better at fighting against this enemy of fascism, this enemy of people who want to, overlook certain things and call them out. And this is why I was saying what I said earlier about David Hogg. And it can be others. It doesn't just have to be him. It could be any voice that's tearing down Democrats rather than pushing forward Democrats. I know that some of you were upset with me for criticizing Governor Newsom about his podcast guest. That needed to be called out, because he could have just as well had other people on that podcast. He doesn't need to know what the right thinks. We know what they think based on their actions. We've seen it. So there's times when we call out behavior, but we don't turn the fire on each other unless that person is doing something so far out of bounds that we need to, wake them the hell up. And that's why I say, rather than fighting against each other, we fight against this fascism. We fight against those who have overlooked, as the clip played, all these, perpetrations of bad behavior. Let's fight that, not fight against each other. Let's take a lesson, a page out of Letitia James's book in terms of not letting them divide us. That's where I think the energy is. I'm going to say that over and over again, because as I ask myself my own question, what do we want to see National Democrats focusing on? I want to see them focusing on a collective come together message and stop this infighting, draw people in rather than pushing people away, show the leadership that says we understand what the assignment is. All right. I think that we'll grab a call or two before we get to the top of the hour. Let's go to our good friend Earl in Hyde Park. Good morning, Earl. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Rich. How you doing, sir?
Good. Yourself?
I'm doing the program again.
Thank you.
I want to give you a pat on the back before I jump in.
Okay.
I think once you left Eric and was able to spread your wings, you've been doing a wonderful job. I understand that I'm not knocking Eric or anything like that. I'm just saying that you found you. You know what I'm saying? And I still love Eric. I mean, I like calling in and giving him a hard time. And, he goes along with the gig, He knows I'm just kidding.
Yep.
So I'm really patting you on the back, because when you jumped in, I mean, you've actually found, a calling that I think you're very good at.
Thank you, Earl. I appreciate that.
Now, the thing why I wanted to call in was when you were making your observations a few moments ago, you left out one very critical thing.
Okay, what was
that? And DEI. There are a lot of white folks who are resentful, who feel that the opportunities that are being taken away from them because people are being put in front of them that don't deserve their positions that they have. And there are a lot of white folks across the country who believe that. They may not necessarily say that's why they voted for Trump, but in all of Trump's rallies, he's attacking folks. He's attacking, like you said earlier, in one of your other broadcasts, someone who's a handicapped person. He's attacking black, brown, whatever. He's attacking the other folks, and that's a big component of the fascination and support of Trump that goes along with some of the other stuff. That's why they're willing to overlook some of the things that you've mentioned. So I'm gonna jump out, but I just want to, keep keeping that DEI thing in there because a lot of white folks are resentful, and I don't know how we turn that around, but
yeah.
I would like for you to put that in your conversation. Thank you for taking my call and keep up the good work. I'm going to still give you a hard time, but keep up the good work.
Will do. All right. Thanks, Earl. Bye now. First of all, thanks to Earl for those compliments. And, I'm a humble dude without the partnership that we all have here at WCPT, whether it be the family meeting and Eric Grant and Michelle Peltier, whether it be Joan, whether it be Patty. All of our shows. It's a team effort, and I mean that. I know I do my part, so I'm not just being magnanimous. And I promised you guys I'd do my best every day, so I work hard to make that happen. So thank you, Earl, for saying that. I get where Earl's coming from in this term, and we're coming to the top of the hour in this conversation around DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. There are a lot of people, period, that don't like to see a person of any community, listen, I wrote this down, and I know we're coming to the top of the hour. The rising tide does lift all ships. It doesn't mean that you lose something because somebody else gets something unless it's directly taken from you. There are many people who are, I was making a visual observation that I don't know if I have enough time to share where it came from, but I'll come back to this as the week goes on. So once I have a chance to kind of work it out in my brain in relationship to something that Earl just said and to the greater scheme of this conversation around DEI. And I will share that as the week goes on. I need to work through it a little bit before I just jump on it so that it has some substance and you guys can understand what I'm trying to say in this space. We are going to be connecting with our good friend Sarah Jones in a moment. We're going to take a quick break. The number is 773-763-9278. This is Choose Views, and we'll be right back.
Check Up on Health with Chris Whitting. More than 20% of American teenagers are obese. And Dr. Richard Johnson from the University of Florida in Gainesville believes one dietary factor is key.
Today we're eating about 30% more fructose than we were eating 20, 30 years ago. And we believe that it's the fructose that is playing a role in obesity. That's not to say that people aren't exercising enough and people are eating too much, but we think that this is a key player in the obesity epidemic.
And that epidemic plays a role in many diseases.
The more soft drinks and fructose people drink, the more likely they are to develop diabetes, for example, or to develop heart disease. But in addition to that, you can show effects on blood pressure. You can induce insulin resistance, which is kind of a pre-diabetes state. You don't see this if you give other carbohydrates. So if you give glucose, for example, you don't see this. It seems to be specific for fructose.
With Checkup on Health, I'm Chris Whitting.
Stop feeling embarrassed about thinning hair and start looking and feeling your best with Hair Grow by New Nordic. Available online at Amazon, Walmart.com, and NewNordicUSA.com, or at your local CVS.
AP News, I'm Marcela Sanchez. World shares and U.S. futures surged after U.S. and Chinese officials announced a 90-day pause on tariffs. During this period, the U.S. would drop its 145% tariff rate on Chinese goods to 30%, while China agreed to lower its rate on goods from 125% to 10%. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent.
We do want trade. We want more balanced trade, and I think that both sides
are committed to achieving that.
The agreement would allow for more talks, followed by this weekend's talks in Geneva, Switzerland. Hamas says it will release the last living American-Israeli hostage held in Gaza. AP correspondent Charles de Ledesma reports.
Hamas says Idan Alexander will be freed on Monday as a goodwill gesture to the Trump administration. Meanwhile, at least 5 children and 4 women were among those killed in the strike on a school in the Jabalia area, the Gaza Health Ministry's emergency service says, adding a number of people were wounded. The attack came as President Donald Trump heads to Saudi Arabia, Qatar and the United Arab Emirates this week. After ending a ceasefire 2 months ago, Israel's intensifying the war in the Gaza Strip, where its 10-week blockade on food, medicine and other supplies is worsening a humanitarian crisis. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky challenged Russia's President Vladimir Putin to meet him personally in Turkey on Thursday for peace talks. Ukraine, along with European allies, had demanded Russia accept an unconditional 30-day ceasefire before the talks. Moscow rejected the proposal and called for direct negotiations instead. Polish Foreign Minister Radek Sikorski says he's ordering the closure of Russia's consulate in Krakow. The decision comes after Polish authorities said Russia was responsible for a fire that destroyed a shopping center in Warsaw last year. There's rising concerns in Europe over Russian attempts to destabilize the region through covert operations. This is AP News. The PKK Kurdish militant group has announced it will disband and disarm as part of a new peace initiative with Turkey, ending 4 decades of armed conflict. The decision comes days after the PKK convened a party congress in Iraq. In February, the group's leader, Abdullah Öcalan, who's been imprisoned since 1999, urged his group to convene a congress and formally decide to disband. It's one of the longest insurgencies in the Middle East and has claimed tens of thousands of lives. President Trump's visit to the Middle East this week will not include a visit to Israel to discuss the war in Gaza or talks with Iran about its nuclear program. Instead, he'll travel to Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates, where he aims to leverage American economic interests. The president won't be able to avoid altogether diplomacy on Gaza or Iran. The Gulf countries hosting him are also interested in easing the regional tensions that emanate from these two places. I'm Marcela Sanchez, AP News.
This is 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Partial sunshine develops here for today. We'll see a high around 80 degrees. East winds around 5 to 10 miles per hour, gusting as high as 20. Then for tonight, a slight chance for showers and thunderstorms. Cloudy skies, a low near 62. By Tuesday, a slight chance for rain showers and thunderstorms. Cloudy, high of 77. Wednesday, slight chance for rain and storms, a high of 81. Thursday, chance for storms again, high around 90. That's your latest Chicago weather update. Currently, it's 57.
Millions of Americans take medicine like Ozempic and Zepbound. Many of them are overpaying by thousands of dollars a year. These GLP-1 medications for diabetes, weight loss, and more may not always be covered by your insurance, but GoodRx can help. GoodRx helps you save every month on prescriptions at over 70,000 pharmacies nationwide. Best of all, it's free to use. Check GoodRx to save on GLP-1s. Just go to GoodRx.com/GLP. That's GoodRx.com/GLP. GoodRx is not insurance, but can be used instead of insurance, including Medicare and other federal and state-funded programs.
WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter.
Welcome to Choose Views with Richard Chew. Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that focuses on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Choose Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chew.
Hey guys, welcome back. Welcome back to Choose Views 773-763-9278. Here we are. It's Monday, and we're just working our way through the craziness, guys. And I, before we went to the break, that's the thing that I felt was really important is to try to articulate a little bit of what Earl was saying about there's a lot there are lots of reasons, but there's some core reasons, and I want to make sure that I'm always clear as best I can be of what I think the core reasons are. And we can fight about the methodology and all that. And so, that's the point I wanted to make. I'm going to work on this, kind of get this thing clear in my head before I bring it to the show in terms of what I wanted to say about DEI and rising tide. And this will make some sense. It'll make more sense as I have a couple days to kind of work out what I saw at some point this weekend. And I think you guys will appreciate it in connection to what Earl was talking about. All right. Is Sarah ready? We had some crazy technology things happening this morning, but we got it figured out. Good morning, Sarah Jones from Politicus USA. How are you this morning?
Good morning, Richard. I'm good. It's so good to be here. How are you?
I'm doing great. That's the beauty of having a backup and being able to, if one technology decides to be difficult, then we can go to something else and still make it work. So I'm glad you're with us this morning. Wow. As we say, offline, what a doo-doo show we're in right now.
We really are. It is, you know what it is? It's like one nightmare to the next, and it feels so surreal, doesn't it? It's just like you knew it was going to be bad, but this is also still hard to believe.
Yeah. It's interesting. And by the way, guys, we're talking with our good friend Sarah Jones from Politicus USA, who is a co-founder, wonderful writer. You've seen her material all over social media, all over regular media. We'll call it regular media, not mainstream anymore. I guess I'll slip into that every now and again. But Sarah is, along with their partner Jason Easley, they're prolific in the material that they provide to all of us to be able to read and to follow. And we're going to talk about a couple of recent things that you posted, but specifically, as we said in this opening, we're in a crazy, crazy time. And I played a clip at the beginning of the show from Letitia James, the Attorney General in New York, about fighting and why the courts are working in our favor, or they're still acting and deciding in our favor because the law is the law. But I wanted to get your thoughts on some things that have happened in the last week to 10 days time, and more specifically this weekend with ICE arresting Democratic elected officials. I mean, what the H? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah. But, I think they're doing this and putting on the biggest show they can while doing it in order to silence people and in order to send a message that people should not be standing up. They shouldn't be doing their constitutional duty, because a lot of the Democrats that they're threatening to arrest, they have a constitutional duty to do oversight. And so one of their jobs is to get access. They are obligated to have access to ICE facilities to do oversight. So when you see these arrests, right, they're sending a message: don't do the constitutional job that the people pay you to do. We will arrest you if you do that. And a lot of the most brutal actions that we're seeing from the Trump administration all center around immigration, although I'd like to point out that he is also giving South African white people, Afrikaners specifically, kind of a VIP status as refugees, even though their own country says they're not being persecuted in any way, to come here. So, the immigration issues that he has are clearly based in race and ethnicity, and he has a certain kind of person he wants to come here. I think it's like he's importing apartheid here, because you see so many white South African wealthy people who grew up in or were influenced by apartheid in his MAGA sphere. So, going back to these arrests, like Kristi Noem, an aide for Kristi Noem, said that they were going to, arrest 3 Democratic members of Congress. These are all efforts to chill and to silence anyone, but specifically Democrats, from standing up to them, from doing their job. And I think that's an attack on the Constitution. It's an attack on the rule of law. What I'd like to see. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, the thing that you're going back to, just to let you guys know, the 3 lawmakers that ICE or Kristi Noem is saying this about, in terms of who they're looking at, arresting for, frankly, doing their jobs, are Representatives Bonnie Watson Coleman from New Jersey, Rob Menendez from New Jersey, and LaMonica McKeever from New Jersey. And this is all stemming from Ras Baraka, the mayor of Trenton, being arrested for doing essentially the job of an elected official, which is to protect the people who are part of their district or part of their city. And so now we've got, what's the woman's name? Tricia McLaughlin saying that is that right? Do you know what I'm talking about? There'll be more
I know
arrests.
who you're talking about. I think it's McLaughlin or McLaughlin, yeah.
That there'll be more arrests. But in the meantime,
yes.
What do we know about these people, these South African folks that are coming, that they're basically importing? What do we know about their background? How do we not know that they are bringing all kinds of criminality, all kinds of issues to the United States? But because they're white South Africans, they're being welcomed with open arms by this administration. And to your point, Sarah, I've said this before. There are two very specific people that have South African connections that are beyond wealthy, crazy wealthy, that are impacting our politics right now. Elon Musk and Peter Thiel. Both of them highly influenced by South African politics during apartheid. And these are mid-50s white guys who were brought up in that cauldron of believing what apartheid was all about. And now they're having an unfavorably high amount of influence on our politics in this country. I'm not happy with that.
No, I think anybody with any sense of love for this country and what it's supposed to stand for should be very upset about. I mean, it's absolutely disgusting. He's also of the four. There's sort of four people around him. David Sachs, that venture capitalist, who's a big fundraiser for Trump, and then Paul Ferber. He was a South African software developer, and he has been identified by, I think, two teams of forensic linguists as the originator of QAnon. And we all know what QAnon did to this country in getting Trump to the White House the first time around. So, but he denies being Q, but, we see that. And so in case people aren't aware, that apartheid is basically a system of enforced racial segregation and discrimination against the non-white majority of the people in South Africa. And I think it was in place from 1948 to 1990s, but it's everyone, of any kind of care for democracy and human rights is against apartheid. So it's very striking that Donald Trump wants to import that into the United States. And we see that.
It goes back to something you said earlier about importing this whiteness. Do you remember in his first term when Trump said something along the lines of, how in terms of immigration, people coming from, quote, white countries, and he named off some of the quote unquote Nordic countries is where we want to have immigrants coming from.
Yeah, and it's so obvious, and I don't even think he's trying to hide it. I think it's a wink at his base, so they all know what he means. I think there's people in this country who might not be aware of this. Maybe independents are not quite cued in yet, but it's like, how can you miss what's happening, especially with this move here? And these people that are surround him, Thiel and Sachs, they have written things. One of them is the diversity myth, which was a defense of, quote, Western civilization. You see Elon Musk talk about that. He sort of froths at the mouth about that all the time, and against multiculturalism. So we all know what that means. They want more white babies, and that is their defense for stopping women from, not wanting women to be able to use birth control. And I think that we haven't seen the other side of that. What will they do if they get their way with that? What are they going to do to babies that aren't white? I think that's something that is never discussed, but it clearly doesn't align with their the way they see the world. And I think the way they see the world is exceptionally troubling. And we have to highlight that for people so that they understand that this isn't two sides or two different parties arguing about politics. This is one really noxious, damaging, destructive element that's overtaken the Republican Party that wants to take away rights, human rights, basic rights, from everyone in this country who doesn't fit into this the way they see the world.
One of the things right now, Sarah, and thank you for that, it's a statement that people will make oftentimes about, the Republican Party, speaking of race and in this country, enslavement, that the Republican Party is a party that quote unquote freed the slaves, to use that phrase. And the Republican Party has always been the one that's been for personal values and making sure that people have their independence, when in fact what people want to say, and Lincoln freed the slaves. Okay, however someone wants to hear that and process it, I'm less concerned about that or interested in that conversation, and I'm more concerned about the current Republican Party. To your point about what's happened with the Republican Party, I'm more concerned and focused on what they're doing now. What Lincoln did, and how the Democratic Party used to be in terms of the Jim Crow South and all the rest. I'm more concerned about what's happening today. And the Republican Party today is not anything that represents anything that was supposedly a Republican Party that was a good Republican Party in the past. And a lot of it, what comes out is this huge amount of need to separate and divide people, which is why I've been so hardcore on we cannot let our party, our people, our team, our strength be divided and picked off by what's coming from the right. And messaging is a big part of what's coming from the right. So that's why I appreciate what you just said there in terms of illuminating what's happening with this sort of subtle move to some of these migrants, if you will, or immigrants, if you will, that are coming from quote unquote white countries or countries that represent whiteness and separation.
Well, what you just said goes, I see that argument all the time. The Republicans freed the slaves. That's called whataboutism. That was a very long time ago, and the party has basically flipped and become much worse. Like, when they realized that the only way they could get votes was to play on people in the South, white people in the South, on their racism. That's what they did. And that was a deliberate strategy that they chose, the Southern strategy. So for all of this, there's no point in talking about what they did, this great thing that they did a very long time ago, because this party would never do that today. In fact, I don't know that either party would do it today. It seems like nobody has any courage anymore to do the right thing. I mean, there are Democrats and a few Republicans trying to do the right thing, so I don't mean to color them all with that. But I'm just saying as the overall landscape isn't looking great in terms of who has the courage to stand up and say, this is not the way things should be. And I did hear AOC say that over the weekend. She said, this is our country. This is not the country of Donald Trump. And that's what they're trying to turn it into. And absolutely, that is what they're trying to do. And they want everyone to just fall in line with that. And people, we must not do that. We have to all find the courage to stand up against this, because we are this country. We are the better parts of this country. Anyone who cares about everybody else is the better part of this country.
And I love that positioning. Anybody that cares about anyone else. And right now, I played a clip earlier that talked, what are you willing to overlook for fascism? And it speaks to how many people have they've allowed themselves to say, I'm okay with that. And that's really not a country that one should want to be a part of. We should want to be in a position to push people and push ourselves to say those things are unacceptable. Speaking of unacceptable, Sarah, and we're talking with Sarah Jones from Politicus USA this morning here on Choose Views. Let's talk about this $400 million basic bribe from Qatar and this jet that that Donald Trump. I mean, talk about, I don't even know where to start when I was looking at and reading and reviewing this over the weekend. But, oh, my goodness. Sarah, you take the baton on this one.
It never will, because the reason this is exactly my reaction when I saw this. I am gobsmacked. There is like the level of corruption and grift from this guy. I will say the only time he manages to impress me is how greedy he is and how he doesn't care how things look to anybody. So here he is. He's going to take this $400 million quote gift from Qatar, a foreign state, and he's doing it without congressional permission. And then this is a gift that he's going to charge the taxpayers to turn into Air Force One and then turn it back into a private jet after that, after he leaves office. The only good news I heard in there was that he's, is he really planning on leaving? Great. That was a moment of excitement. But other than that, he's going to charge the taxpayers twice for this, on top of taking, what is he giving them for this?
Right.
What is he giving them? That is the question. And we're never going to find that out. But, we did get Richie Torres has formally requested the Office of Inspector General to investigate the legality of this gift. And let's all remember that the Office of Inspector General is where they do actual independent audits, unlike DOJ. And they have experts who know what to look for and how to do a professional audit. So that is very different than DOJ. So when they say we're going after waste, fraud, and abuse through DOJ, they're not, because that already exists. And I know people probably already know that, but I like to repeat it because I still run into people that are like, well, I don't see why everybody's so mad about DOJ. We got to get rid of fraud. Well, hello, how about this $400 million plane right here?
How about
Does that not look like some...
How about civics? How about remembering civics and knowing how the government works rather than what the hell is going on reality television? How about that? Go on YouTube and Google, right? And Google how does this thing work called our government, rather than watching some damn reality show about somebody getting married. I mean, it's insane, and that just, I mean, you said the word gobsmacked, and thank goodness for Representative Richie Torres, a Democrat out of New York. Yes, he formally requested an independent office of the Inspector General to investigate this gift and the legality of it. And, he's sounding the alarm, and he should. Yeah. Because, listen, I mean, Sarah, think about it like this. Maybe we can get people to think about it like this. This 400, okay, let's just say that gift is legitimate. That the value of that should go into the pockets of the American people, not into the pockets of Donald Trump or anybody tied to the administration. Take that $400 million and use it to help people who are struggling from the damn executive orders to get rid of certain departments of the government. But see, this is where, again, what are people willing to look past or look over or overlook in leaning toward fascism? The question that I asked earlier. People are Americans that stupid? Or are they that much in need of a king that's going to lead them down this path of craziness? But man, yet alone the fact that, I mean, we could take the position of what Congress has to say about it. But let's just say that if Congress were to approve it, then don't take that and use it for your own, betterment. Pass the value on to the community of citizens of the United States. Seems. And
let's just pause for a moment and imagine Joe Biden getting a plane from Qatar, a $400 million gift. What do we think would happen? This is the Republicans spent years investigating Joe Biden's son for his alleged influence in Ukraine, right?
Yeah.
What does this look like? Because that which they never did prove, but what they were alleging was nowhere near this. So what we have is these constant projections out there to gaslight people, and then they go and do it on a much bigger scale, and that's supposed to be just fine. So we're all just supposed to accept this. And before we get, I know we're close. Do you mind if I bring up something that's really important that
Absolutely.
I want everyone to?
I was just going to ask you what's on Sarah's radar right now.
Well, I'm so glad that you asked because everyone needs to know that on Tuesday, the Energy and Commerce Committee is going to be voting on these cuts to Medicaid. And what there is right now is if everybody can call their representatives and tell them, especially if you have one on this committee, which you can check because AOC has, I think it's Ocasio-Cortez.com/Save Medicaid. She has a tool on her website where you can look and see if your representative might be one of the people on this committee. And several of these Republicans on this committee are in swing districts. And so there is a real chance that they can be swayed by your phone calls to not vote in this committee. So you want to stop this wherever you can, and this is the very first place that it's taking place. So this vote has to happen for it to proceed out of this committee. So if you can call today and make your voice known against these Medicaid cuts, which actually are going to, if they were to go through, would impact all kinds of things, including education budgets. So it is a very big deal that needs to. It's absolutely grotesque abuse of their power to even be considering this. Also, they can pass these tax cuts, and that's all part of this bigger thing that Donald Trump put all of his. He wants to kind of beat Joe Biden to have. To pass huge legislation like Biden did, but Biden's was bipartisan. And I think Trump is out there wondering, why isn't mine? But I want that bipartisan thing. But he wants to do it without conceding anything to Democrats. Right. So he's out there like, this is his idea, right? So he just wants everyone to do everything his way so he can get the gold star. And this is part of that big bill that he's trying to pass that will be his big achievement. Because remember, he never got infrastructure week. Joe Biden actually got it done.
In
so
record
he carries
time.
these grudges in record time. Yes, exactly. And you know how Trump is. He carries these little petty grudges around, and he doesn't want to do the work. He just wants to get the recognition and the gold star. So I think that is the most crucial thing happening in the next 24 hours that I hope people can activate on.
And what
on
Sarah
the ground.
specifically is talking about as we wrap up is a full committee markup on the budget reconciliation that's taking place tomorrow. And the number that you can call to the Energy and Commerce Chair's office, who's Brett Guthrie, that number is 202-225-3641. Again, that number is 202-225-3641 to call, leave your message, make your comments. And I think it's a smart move. Thank you, Sarah, for that, because she stays plugged into a lot of these calendar items and committee things that are going on. What else is on your radar until we talk again in 2 weeks?
Oh, my gosh.
And it goes by fast, doesn't it?
So much, it goes by so fast. It does. I know. I wish we'd talk more often and sometimes because there's so much happening. You know, it's crazy. I think in terms of the arrest, I guess what I want to say about that is that, you know, we all see how Trump plays this both ways because he will say he's like directing the investigation into Chris Krebs, for example, who said that the 2020 election was safe. So he's getting that investigation. But then he plays this plausible deniability about the other things that are happening, like, for instance, what Kristi Noem is doing. So he's on out there giving that order, and he says, I know you don't want me to politicize the DOJ. You know, this is the man that has done more politicization of the DOJ than any president in history. But he's out there with these gaslighting, two-faced comments, basically, where he's trying to have it both ways and get credit for something that he's doing the exact opposite of. So when you guys hear him talk about this stuff, just know that almost everything he's saying is to protect his own hide. It's funny how the people doing these actions for him seem unaware of what happened to their predecessors.
Yeah.
because it wasn't pretty for them.
Exactly. Good point. Sarah Jones, y'all, from Politicus USA. Thank you so much for being with us this Monday, helping us get the week started off the right way. And we can't wait to have you back on. And we will, I know you and I will talk in the meantime. How can folks find you real quickly, Sarah?
I'm on The Daily with Sarah Jones and Politicus USA. And thank you so much, Richard. You do such a great job on this show. I am really honored to be on it with you and your wonderful audience.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Thanks for having time to be with us this morning and working through the technology of getting your segment started. So stay safe, keep writing, stay in the fight, and we'll talk soon. Bye now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break. 773-763-9278. This is Choose Views, and we'll be right back.
Progressive knows when you're in your RV, you're already on vacation. That's when you become Vacation You, who just camped where there's absolutely no shade. Even though regular you burns easily. In fact, Vacation You burns too, but is too stubborn to admit it, which is why regular you gets in trouble at the dermatologist, because Vacation You doesn't do doctors. So bundle your RV with your home or auto policy and earn an automatic discount from Progressive. And spend the savings on the both of you. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers. Not available in all states or situations.
Still struggling with gas, bloat, constipation, nausea, or diarrhea? Have you tried eliminating foods but felt no change? It's time to call the tummy whisperer, Renee Barish, at Digestive Health Solutions. Renee uses targeted testing to reveal exactly what's happening in your gut. Gut bacteria plays a key role in all your body functions, from cardiovascular regulation to brain function. When the gut is imbalanced, you may experience symptoms that extend beyond the gut, such as anxiety, skin issues, poor sleep, or increased risk for disease. Digestive Health Solution uses advanced testing to identify harmful microbes and evaluate the overall balance of the gut ecosystem. Get insights into your health, digestion, and how your microbiome affects all aspects of your body. Stop suffering. Call Renee now at 847-207-2034 or visit thetummywhisperer.com. That number is 847-207-2034. Let's get you feeling better. The Tummy Whisperer.
This is a WCPT moment in labor. In the summer of 1881, 2 decades after the Civil War, 20 African-American laundresses met at a local church in Atlanta to form the Washing Society, a trade organization which looked to create a higher uniform wage and greater work autonomy for laundresses, also known as washerwomen. Through the help of local preachers and door-to-door canvassing, the Washing Society grew from 20 members to 3,000 in only a few weeks. The workers went on strike and faced opposition from their employers as well as the local politicians. The Atlanta City Council proposed a licensing fee for their organizing efforts. Strikers agreed to the fee in exchange for self-regulation. In the end, the City Council rejected the proposed fees and the laundresses prevailed. The impact of the strike led to increased wages for some, but showed that African-American workers, including women, were vital to the New South economy. This has been a WCPT moment in labor. We're working for your rights.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Partial sunshine develops here for today. We'll see a high around 80 degrees. East winds around 5 to 10 miles per hour, gusting as high as 20. Then for tonight, a slight chance for showers and thunderstorms. Cloudy skies, a low near 62. By Tuesday, a slight chance for rain showers and thunderstorms, cloudy high of 77. Wednesday, slight chance for rain and storms, a high of 81. Thursday, chance for storms again, a high around 90. That's your latest Chicago weather update. Currently, it's 59.
This is WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Welcome back to Choose Views with Richard Chu on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Hey, Progressives, welcome back to the show. 773-763-9278. Check out Sarah Jones in Politicus USA. She writes great material and really is plugged into all that's happening right now. And I'm glad that we have her on the show every other Monday. So maybe we will have that a little bit more frequently in the weeks to come. One of the things that is part of this challenge that we are going through, and a reality, is there are people who are, for lack of better words, they've recognized damn, I made a mistake on a lot of levels. And it may be in their voting patterns and habits in this most recent election, not just voting for Trump, but also voting for the Senate or House member that ended up putting them in a situation where where the House of Representatives, being Republican, is creating a firewall for Trump because they're not doing a damn thing. It's not the Dems don't have the numbers. The Dems can still do work. They still need to bring bills. They still need to fight. They still need to go into red districts, but they don't have the numbers. So the Republicans are the ones in the House that are at fault for not drawing the ire and standing up against Trump. That's just the reality. And they are the ones that are also making it difficult for people to get through a different message. So my point of all this is we know that there are people who have said I made a mistake and I've been with the wrong team and I voted for the wrong people. And a lot of folks are coming out. You're seeing it all over social media. You're seeing it on mainstream media and the like. But one of our regular guests and contributors has made his new business, and you guys have heard us talk about and had this gentleman on the show before, from Leaving MAGA, and that's our new friend and partner in fixing a lot of this, and that's Rich Logis with Leaving MAGA. So this morning we've got Rich with us again, and also a guest with us this morning that's going to kind of talk a little bit about his reasoning for leaving MAGA, and that would be, I hope I have this right, Steve Vilches. Is that correct? Do I have that right?
That's right.
All right, cool.
Yes.
Well, Rich, good morning first to you, and welcome to the show. I hope you're doing well. Glad to have you back with us.
Hey, Richard. Good morning. It's always a pleasure to be with you. I'm happy to report to listeners that since my last appearance, we have added more testimonials of those who left MAGA to our site. Everybody can read all of the stories at leavingmaga.org. So each month I've been on, we have increased the number of people who have come forward to say they left MAGA.
Man, that makes me so happy, Rich. Not for any reason other than I go back to and some people are going to think I'm looking at the world through rose-tinted glasses. I'm the last person that does that. But there's so many times that when I hear stories like that or points like that you just made, I just go back to the immortal words of late Rodney King, can't we all just get along? And I think right now there's not a calming of the temperature of this country and the world for that matter. And I think what you're doing is a way to try to calm some of the craziness in your own way. It's certainly, as I've used this phrase before, and I'll use it again, bridging the gap between those who got caught up, as the late Representative Elijah Cummings said, got caught up and didn't know how to get out. But you've done great work, man. I got to give you your props there in creating this organization, Leaving MAGA, but also finding a way for other people to be a part of it, to share their stories and keep that bridge growing and getting stronger and stronger. Rich, take a moment and I'll let you introduce our guest, Steve, and take a little bit to tell us about your connection with him. And then Steve, I'd like you to share with us your story and why and how you got involved and then how you disconnected yourself from MAGA.
Well, I actually met Steve through a social media post I made where a friend of his got in touch with me and said, hey, I see what you're doing. You need to talk to my friend Steve. And when I finally connected with Steve, I was struck by his precociousness as a young man who got wrapped up in MAGA as a 13-year-old. And I want to tell listeners that you will probably never meet a young person as articulate, well-spoken, and contemplative as Steve is. And he has a story that is really one that I think is of a redemptive arc. And now he's trying to make amends for his past deeds and rhetoric, just like all of us are at Leaving MAGA. So I'm very pleased and honored, Richard, to introduce Steve to your listeners.
Steve, good morning. We'll let you take it away.
All right, hi. Like Rich said, I am pretty young. I'm only 21.
So I just voted for my first presidential election in this recently, and I proudly voted for Kamala. But like what Rich said, 2016 was the first time I really was into politics. I was only 12. I was 13, like right after the election, and I was very pro-Clinton. I was very pro-Hillary Clinton. I was seeing Donald Trump becoming like basically from the nobody polling at 1 to 3%, then quickly becoming the presumptive nominee and eventually the official nominee. And seeing his character, it was very appalling. I found it very unprofessional, very contrarian, just rude, very braggadocious, not really answering the questions. And I was like, all right, this isn't really someone who I want to be my president. But again, I was only 12, so my vote pretty much was non-existent. I watched the election happen, but me being pretty young, I had to sleep in a little bit early. But it was around like 10 or 11 p.m., so it was around the time where Clinton had a lead, and I was like, all right, Clinton should be fine. I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning. Clinton's going to be president. We're going to be great. And then I woke up like around 6 o'clock, around pretty early the next day. I took my iPad out, I looked at the election results, and I saw a big red circle, and it said Trump wins. And, I was nervous. I didn't know how to think because everyone was saying Clinton is going to win, Clinton is going to win. And seeing all the stuff that the media was saying Trump was going to do, deportations, he's going to take away people's rights. And then I was concerned about his homophobia, xenophobia, and sexism. But me being young, I was always willing to learn new things, whether it was in school, in my sports, or just in life in general. So I was like, okay, let's be a little bit open-minded. Let's see how he does as president. We haven't had a Republican president since George Bush. So let's give it a try. If he does good, then maybe he'll get a well-deserved second term. But if not, then we'll have someone replace Donald Trump after his first term. So I was trying to be a bit open-minded. I was trying to listen to a little bit more right-leaning sources because at the time I was more listening to CNN, Vice, Vox, NBC, so a little bit more center left stuff. But very quickly into Trump's inauguration and soon his presidency, I kind of just instantly swamped my media preferences because I loved watching YouTube. That's what most 13-year-olds would love watching YouTube. And I kept seeing the same Republican figures show up. These are younger people like Candace Owens, Ben Shapiro, and in some cases more far-right like Mal Yiannopoulos, Alex Jones, Owen Schroyer, and in some cases InfoWars and Breitbart. And seeing the same videos of them speaking at college campuses, talking about why they like Trump and talking down other liberal college students. I found it very entertaining. And they all had one agenda, promoting Donald Trump, not really promoting bipartisanship, which really should have been the message, because Donald Trump is contrarian. But I think that if you really want us to have a stronger America, you really should have had the ability to work together to find that common ground. But they didn't seem interested in that. They just seemed promoting of dividing us further, promoting Trump's agenda and not a pro-America agenda. And I quickly fell into that. I very quickly went from, a center-left, left-leaning person into pro-Trump, pro-MAGA. And around January, February of 2017, I was pretty much, a Trump supporter. And again, I was only in middle school. So everything just kind of went downhill from there. I had a facade with other people because my friends were very left-leaning, my parents were liberal. But whenever I would talk to them, I would pretend to be, a liberal, but in reality, I was a very staunch core Trump supporter. And it was hard because I didn't want to lose my friends. I didn't want my family to see me as an outcast or not talk to me. But I had to do what I had to do, and I kind of regret it. And then it just kept getting worse. I started to believe these conspiracy theories. But two things that I really knew were complete BS from Trump was that climate change was a hoax and that about his policies and stance on COVID. Because all my life I love science. right now I'm in college. I just finished my third year with a 4.0 GPA still to become a science teacher. And I love science. And in high school, I was taking a lot of advanced science courses, and seeing Trump talk about COVID, you know, it was something that was a huge concern to me, because people that I know were getting COVID, and seeing Trump say, oh, you could put a light through the body, you should put hydroxychloroquine in your body, you know, put bleach. And it's like, this is dangerous, pretty much almost a lethal misinformation. And I knew people would die from this if they listened to it, and people were dying. And it made me upset. And another thing was when he kept saying how climate change was a hoax. It wasn't true. It's part of this woke media agenda. And again, I knew that wasn't true, because I love looking up information and data about big topics. And climate change is real. It is happening. And human efforts are greatly exacerbating it. And I believe that we really should do a lot of things to have more clean, renewable energy. But Trump doesn't seem to care about that. So that also made me a bit upset. And then we had the 2020 election. I was confident Trump was going to win, but then Joe Biden won. And I became an election denier. I will admit I did become one. And I remained so firm that Joe Biden had stolen the election, that Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania were all rigged. I believe that Sharpie thing in Arizona, which now is complete BS, but I believe that was true. And then came the insurrection. I was in the middle of my English class when that happened. We were supposed to go over rhetorical analyses, but instead of doing that, we watched a live stream of the insurrection as it happened. And it was that moment where I had no way to defend Trump. You know, I somehow found a way to defend him, back him on everything, whether it was whether it was comments about, grabbing women by the, those type of things. I tried to defend him on that, but it was the insurrection where I was like, I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
That was pretty much like my first limit with, Donald Trump and MAGA. And at that point, I was like, okay, I'm a Republican, but I don't want to be like a Trump Republican, because I just want my name associated with insurrectionists.
Yeah. So Steve, a couple of questions, and your story is illuminating, and we have limited time this morning, so I want to ask you a couple of quick questions.
Yeah.
So, young cat, you're 21 years old, you're in college right now, and your brain is wide open to learning, etc., as you self-proclaimed. So I have to ask you this question. There are other young cats out there, and I mean that not gender-based, but young folks, male and female, and of the LGBTQ community, that probably were ascending like you were and are, that maybe had some similar thinking about the same things you just broke down. What have you been able to do, or how have you been able to navigate that terrain to either help them use maybe even some of your science, interest and curiosities and studies to help get them unstuck? What have you been able to do in that space?
I always like to do my research. Ever since I left MAGA, I love doing my research, looking at both sides of the issue. I don't like to say I question everything, but I kind of do question everything, because it kind of is the point of science, is to question things and look into it. And the way I just kind of live my life back then and live my life now is, don't take everything absolute. If someone were to tell you something, don't trust it absolute 100%. If it's someone you trust, maybe, but I wouldn't immediately trust it, because again, you might want to double check and make sure what they're saying is true, because now there's a lot of AI misinformation, but back then it was just a bunch of, again, almost the same thing as misinformation being spread by the same people over and over. So you can't just take everything what people say immediately and believe it as, gospel. You have to at least be willing to look into it, do research, see if this news article that they're spreading, is it a real article, or is it a phony photo edit? So it's important that you at least are willing enough to look into something. Not always trust everybody, especially if it's the president of the United States, because sure, they're the president, but not everything they're going to say is true. So always have, something in the back of your mind, in the case the front of my mind, telling me to, look into it, do your research, make sure what they're saying is true. And I don't, it sounds cheesy, but fact-checking is actually so helpful for me because there were times, even now, there are some things that I think is true, but then I look into it and it's false. Yeah. So I would say always be willing to look into it.
I think one of the keys to what you just said is be willing. Some things you can say, okay, that's a fact, that's accurate, or that is what it is. And there's some things that we should be willing to, or open-minded to and open-hearted to look into and sort of check and see. And yeah, you can go down a rabbit hole. Sometimes the rabbit hole's been given a bad label. Sometimes a rabbit hole is a good place to be, because I take it to the same level of studying in college and all that, where you grab one book in the library to research something, and then you go to where the references are, and you find another one, and then you find another one, and then you find another one. So that's just that's just a way of doing deeper research into a subject. So that you can become better informed. Steve, let me ask you one last question as we wrap up. So these changes have been made. Rich has been there. Leaving MAGA has been a resource for you. What do you see as part of your immediate future, the next couple of years? What are some of the things that you want to be doing, want to be involved in, want to be seeing and saying and being heard?
I still have interest in politics. I'm not saying I want to run for Senate or governor, no. I just think that elections are a big hobby of mine. I closely follow 2024, and I'm doing the same thing again for 2026. I know that Juliana Straughton is running for governor. She will have my vote. So being interested in politics, trying to become a teacher. Sure, I'm doing teach science, but I just might have politics clubs. Public politics. If my students are interested in talking about elections, sure, we can spend a couple minutes in class and talk about that if they want to.
Yeah.
So, but then also if we talk about politics, also encourage students to experiment, do research, gather evidence, make conclusions, because you also do that in a science class. Trying to tie things together. And, it's important because in high school, you're at that point where you're trying to figure out who you are as a person, what is it that you want to do with your life. And some people might realize, hey, politics is what I want to do. But if you're being misguided in that direction of politics, you're not going to be the best person that you want to be. So at the end of the day, if I do my job as a person and hopefully as a teacher to guide students using what I tell them about science in politics or whatever they want, then they can become more informed voters and make better decisions than I did.
That's brilliant. Well, listen, Steve, thanks for being with us this morning, and kudos to you for making the change, coming to the realization, and knowing that you could have a greater impact by just sort of adjusting what you were following and how you were following it. So appreciate you for that and for being with us this morning. Rich, as always, it's good to have you on the show, and you've become a friend of WCPT, so we appreciate your contributions and the guests that you bring to us. I'm glad that the bridge is there and you're keeping it strong, and that the bridge is growing in this effort to help folks who are looking to leave MAGA.
Yeah, and thank you, Richard, and always happy to be with you. I would encourage everyone, read Steve's story a little bit more in depth at our site, leavingmaga.org, with all of our other testimonials. And I would just close with Steve's story is also a cautionary tale that shows that irrespective of age, all of us are susceptible to being influenced.
Absolutely.
And that's a leitmotif throughout all of our stories and testimonials of those who left. We were influenced by right-wing media, and one of the reasons it's so effective at building an audience is the consolidation of messaging. So Steve, as always, hits it right in the bullseye, which is that we have to verify and vet the information we consume. And that's something that all of us did as we started to have our doubts, and eventually we left. So always a pleasure, Rich, to be with you. Please visit us for listeners, leavingmaga.org.
Fantastic, guys. Thanks for being with us this morning. We'll let you go. We'll talk with you soon. Bye now.
Thanks, Richard.
You're welcome. Bye now. Yeah, well, deep breath on that. He was 13 when he got pulled into the fray, and now at 21 he's making a new path. So how do I want to say this? I can be critical, or I can be, all right, great. He saw the light. Let's move forward. And I think that second statement is what gets us what we need to be able to go forward. And he said it as himself. We need to make sure that our message, Rich said this, our message is clear and clean, and that it's one that more people can buy into. So my feeling about that right now is I'm having someone like Rich on, who's created this organization, and the good that they're doing. I love the fact that the testimonials have I feel pretty proud about that. That we're having more. They're having more people that are searching them out, and that they're bringing their story to their site and to their program and to their platform. That's part of the goal of what we're trying to do here, is somewhat be informative in the craziness that we go through, and that I take you guys through and all that. But it's to make sure that people have a direction to go and a place to kind of figure out how in the hell to get out of this craziness. Do we have enough time for we'll sit tight. We'll play this one tomorrow. I think it'll be good for everybody to hear as we're on tomorrow. We had a little surprise for you guys tomorrow. A new little segment that we're doing on Tuesdays from our good friend Michelle Peltier, who is not only a part of the family meeting, but part of the greater family here at WCPT. And Michelle has sat in for me when I've been out every now and again. But she'll be with us starting tomorrow, bringing us Moments with Michelle, which will be a segment that we'll have, and she's put together, and we'll talk through, and it'll be fun. So looking forward to that tomorrow morning, and we'll keep you guys laughing, because Michelle likes to giggle, and that Devin's laughing at that too. But in the meantime, guys, thanks for being with us on this Monday, May 12th, 2025. I can't believe it. We're into the 5th month already. Take a deep breath, guys. Make your life count. We'll see you tomorrow.
Are you tired of talking to yourself? We can get you an audience on the radio. You can produce and host your own radio show on one of our 2 stations. Please call 773-792-1121. That's 773-792-1121 and ask for Mark. Limited space available.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
800-708-3091. 800-708-3091. 800-708-3091. That's 800-708-3091.
This is a WCPT Veteran Minute. In the mid-1800s, many American women were expected to follow what history calls the cult of true womanhood, where men would go off to work and women would stay home, taking care of the house, their children, and husbands. During the Civil War, many women left their homes to join the fight. Thousands of women from the North and South volunteered to join brigades, while over 400 women disguised themselves as men to fight in the war. In the Union, 20,000 white and African American women worked as nurses, traveling from hospital to hospital, offering care to wounded soldiers, even helping to convince the government to create United States Sanitary Commission to create a preventive, hygienic, and sanitary service for the benefit of the Army. During the Civil War, women were faced with new duties, challenging many men's minds for what should be a proper woman's place.
Give your liver the support it needs with Active Liver. Go to newnordicusa.com, Amazon, or ask for Active Liver at your local CVS. New you, new Nordic.
This is 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Partial sunshine develops here for today. We'll see a high around 80 degrees. East winds around 5 to 10 miles per hour, gusting as high as 20. Then for tonight, a slight chance for showers and thunderstorms. Cloudy skies, a low near 62. By Tuesday, a slight chance for rain showers and thunderstorms. Cloudy, high of 77. Wednesday, slight chance for rain and storms, a high of 81. Thursday, chance for storms again, a high around 90. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 61.
This is Chicago's Progressive Talk, 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and online at WCPT820.com, where facts matter.
NBC News Radio, I'm Michael Kastner. President Trump is headed to the Middle East.
AP News, I'm Marcela Sanchez. U.S. and Chinese officials will meet again in a few weeks after reaching a deal to roll back most of their tariffs. On top of a 90-day tariff pause, the U.S. agreed to drop its 145% tariff rate on Chinese goods to 30%, while China has agreed to lower its rate on U.S. goods to 10%. U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent made the announcement at a news conference in Geneva. World shares and U.S. futures surged after the announcement. AP correspondent Charles de Ledesma reports Hamas says it will release the last living American-Israeli hostage held in Gaza.
Hamas says Idan Alexander will be freed on Monday as a goodwill gesture to the Trump administration. Meanwhile, at least 5 children and 4 women were among those killed in the strike on a school in the Jabalia area, the Gaza Health Ministry's emergency service says, adding a number of people were wounded. The attack came as President Donald Trump heads to Saudi Arabia, Qatar and the United Arab Emirates this week. After ending a ceasefire 2 months ago, Israel's intensifying the war